Someone's shouting in the background.
I think Councillor Maxwell is indicating that she's available.
If you can mute yourself, Councillor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Charlie, are we ready to start?
Are we ready, Ben?
Yes, we are.
Carry on, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Then welcome to the planning meeting. Sorry we're a couple of minutes late, but we've had a few things to talk about. But we'll crack on with it now. We've got a lot to do tonight. We should finish at 8:30. I might ask members if they want an extension to get through some more, but we'll take that when it comes at the end of the 2 hours. So we go to the agenda straight away. And firstly, we've added in one at the front of the agenda, which relates to ENC property. And therefore, it's an ENC application for changing round rooms and things within our headquarters, if you like.
Chair,
So-
shouldn't we be doing apologies for absence first?
Should I be what?
Doing apologies for absence first.
Oh, yeah, we're going to do all of those. I'm just saying that as far as the agenda is concerned, we've added one item in at the front of the agenda. We've got a long agenda. There's 7 items on it already, and it could take a long while. I've already suggested to officers that that isn't what we expect to see, and not talking to me about it or Jill about it beforehand in the terms of consultation, that hasn't happened, which we have agreed with officers that it would. Also, they're talking about only having one meeting per month rather than the 2, 3, 4 that we've been having. But we've only been having the meetings because we've needed the time to do it. So again, that's not a decision that I'm awfully happy with, but I'll take those up. But as far as we're concerned tonight, we'll go back to the agenda and we'll start with the apologies, please, Charlie.
Thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillors Roger Glitherow, Lance Jones and also Jeff Shacklock.
Thank you. And is it your wish I sign, when I can, the minutes from the last meeting, members?
Aye.
Anyone got a problem with that? No? All okay
Chairman,
then?
regarding
Yep.
the minutes of the 16th of December, it's regarding application 20/00960 full, which was West End, land north of Brickhilm Road, to move to formally amend the minutes, just so that the reasons for refusal also include the inadequate turning circle, which was discussed as part of the debate of the application, but wasn't actually listed as a refusal reason,
Good.
if that's okay.
Thank you, Charlie. I hope members are all right with that.
I propose we accept that amendment.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Hold your hands up.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Item 3 of the agenda is declarations of interest and informal site visits. So let's start with declarations of interest, please. Anyone?
Yes, please, Chair.
Who's that?
It's Harriet.
Harriet, what is it, please?
Thank you. We've got other interests to declare on application 20/01447 QRY. As part of my role working for Tom Perskov MP, I attended just as an observer a meeting to do with this application, but I didn't participate in the meeting and I come with an open mind this evening.
Then we should be all right with that. Thank you, Harriet. Anyone else?
Yes, please, Chairman.
Lee?
Thank you, Chairman. I wish to bring it to members' attention that my partner, Councillor Helen Howell, who I live with, is chairman of Raunds Town Council Planning Committee and is representing them tonight as a speaker. But I want to make it clear that I attend this meeting this evening and approach all applications to be discussed within it in an open-minded and unbiased manner, and I am not in any way predetermined. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Lee. Is that all? Right, we'll go on then to informal.
Chairman,
Jill.
I also wish to say that I know a couple of the speakers, Councillor Maxwell, Councillor Howell, and as I can imagine that all other members of this committee, we would not let knowing another speaker bias our opinions.
Perhaps, Charlie, you would note there are a couple of district councillors on speaking tonight and that we all know them.
Yeah, I will do.
Thank you, Jill. Right, any site visits, informal site visits? Dudley?
Yeah, I drove down Brooks Road to see just how narrow and what a condition it is yesterday.
Didn't speak to anyone?
I didn't enter the site. I didn't speak to anybody.
Fine, thank you. Any
Chair-
others?
Chairman, I
Jill?
did drive down the same road for the Blotts barn before the last application. I haven't done it in between.
Okay,
before it
thanks.
came to the-
Peter?
Yes, a minor other interest, other than just to say that obviously I've driven past the Hillside application, Brick Hill Road, many times. So same as anybody else would. I've not
Yep,
visited
thank
the
you.
site.
Is that all for site visits anymore?
Yes, Chairman, actually, I also will say then that I also drive down Brooks Road, so I do know that road. And as always, if anybody writes in with any objections, then I do read those on the planning portal. And if anybody asks me that they says that they wish to make representation, then I point them in the direction of East Northants Council.
Thank you, Lee. Right, so that's that item on the agenda. We'll move to item 4. Questions by members, please, Charlie.
None received, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And item 5 is section 106 agreements and delegations. Are you going to do that, Carolyn?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You'll have received a copy of the reports. Extensions of time are requested on 4 items until the 31st of March 2021, which is when we finish as East Northants Council. You'll see that 3 decisions have now been issued. And in addition to the Section 106 report, just a verbal update to request an extension of time on application 19/01024/OUT for Mike Wells Cars. It was previously agreed by committee members to have the Section 106 completed by the 6th of November 2019. So just requesting an extension until the 28th of February as the agreement's now complete. So we need the extension of time to be able to issue the decision on that application. So just seeking.
Can someone propose that, please?
Yeah.
Can someone propose that?
I propose it.
Peter,
Mercer.
someone second it.
Jill Mercer.
Thank you, Jill. Any comments?
Yes, I have a comment about the 106. Does this mean if it's not settled by March 31st, any applications that have where the 106 money is not agreed, those applications will be deemed as not being passed?
We don't know what the future committee procedure is, but I'll review it when we go back to the February committee. Hopefully I'll have a bit more information then, so if I need to request further extensions, I can do so at the next Planning Management Committee meeting.
Because the real danger is that applications could slip through and the 106 money, and I particularly think, and I'm biased about this, I suppose, for schools, may not be paid. And we've had enough difficulty getting money out of it as it is from the county council. And don't forget, they've got to agree as well. So if we don't actually have that agreed in time, I think the application should fall. We'll have to reapply because we really do need this money for.
Would you consider that, Caroline, please?
Yeah, I'll get.
We're only talking about this application tonight.
Yes.
And we're talking about 106 agreements, and that's what we're talking about.
We are talking about that. You are talking to yourself, Dudley. So that's that particular item.
Yeah.
Let's move on then to the applications for the night. And I have to say, members, have you seen Carolyn's updates sheets?
Yeah.
The last one was at 4 o'clock and it was a good few pages long.
No, up to 4 o'clock.
Chairman, I think
Because if we don't understand all these things, we might get to the wrong decision, mightn't we? And the major update sheet was, I think, yesterday or the day yesterday, was pages and pages long. If we feel if we feel as a committee that we haven't had enough time to digest them, But you may. It's up to you entirely, not me. If you feel that we haven't had time, then we should perhaps wait until we've all read everything before we make final decisions. Lee?
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, just for clarification, you're right. We all had them ridiculously late at 4 o'clock. I think we've had one since. To say we're supposed to ignore that one. A later one came at 20 to 5, and I think the one at 20 to 5 said please ignore the 4 o'clock one. There's more different ones. So just for clarification.
So that's 3.
If I could just step in, the only amendment to the one at 20 to 5 was a planning application reference number. The content is still the same as the one that was sent at 4 o'clock. The update sheet was sent yesterday, and any amendments that were sent today are included in red on the update sheet. Everything else remains the same as yesterday.
Yeah. There's quite a lot to take in over the time, but if members are happy, we'll just carry on. We'll ask officers to think about doing that again. No, please. So are we all happy, members? We'll carry on. Yep, no noise, so it must be. So let's go to the applications then. So the first one is the extra one, which isn't in the agenda. Which officer's taking this one? Is it you, Patrick?
It is, Chair.
You're taking the ENC application, are you?
So
the first one is an application from ENC, which Patrick will tell us all about now.
Evening, members. Bear with me one moment. I'm just going to try and share the presentation. Okay. Hopefully, you now have a PowerPoint presentation in front of you. Good. Right. This is an application, or this is brought for yourselves, members, as it is on council-owned land. Is actually at the East Northants Council offices in Thlapston. It's an application for 4 air-cooled heat pumps, and the reference is in front of yourselves. Aware of sort of giving you some background to the proposal and location. I'd expect many of you, of course, will be aware of the council offices, but this is the aerial view of it and where the heat pumps are proposed. What we have, if you can see my cursor where the main entrance is, the main public entrance. So you've got the main car park here. The leisure centre and then centre is over sort of towards the top of the picture. So the heat pumps are on the land that is near the main entrance, sort of on that walkway that's actually raised above some land below. So you've got that ground floor, but then below there's a lower ground floor, and you can see there's a sort of planted area, sort of that forms part of that bank. I've just used a Google image here, just a photo. So this is the main entrance, main public entrance. The air source heat pumps are sort of just to the right of that and lower, so they're partly obscured, or would be partly obscured from view as we see it here. This is an extract from the proposed site plan, again reiterating where the air source heat pumps are proposed, as well as their acoustic fencing that would go around them. This is another image, again clarifying. So on the left hand side we've got the council offices. There are a number of windows in that elevation. This is a sort of paved area. It's not generally accessed other than for sort of maintenance. It's not really an area where any staff or any member of the public would go. It's merely a space outside the office space here, and sort of below the entrance walkway. This is an extract from the proposed elevation. So we've got, it's primarily the area we can see partly in purple. That's the acoustic fencing. In blue you've got the pumps themselves. So you can see the actual acoustic barrier itself is larger than the units, clearly designed to limit the noise that emits out of the units themselves. In front of you now, you should be seeing the the sort of a side view, give you a sense of the depth of the pumps and the acoustic fencing. So it's 3.3 meters tall, so it's higher than the ground floor windows, around a meter or 1.1 meters separation from the wall. In terms of the actual consideration of the application, it's set out in your report. Fundamentally, the main considerations have been the noise impacts. You'll see in your reports that there is a discussion on that, which has included the benefit of a noise report provided with the application, as well as comments from the Council's Environmental Protection Officer. There was initial objection, but then that was followed by a noise survey and discussions between the two parties and details in terms of background noise. Ultimately, it's concluded the noise that the heat pumps would emit in terms of the impact on the adjacent offices and the nearby sort of school space opposite or across from the walk is acceptable. It's deemed acceptable in terms of the visual impact. Whilst it is it's not particularly aesthetically pleasing, it is in a sort of sunken away, largely hidden location without a significant visual impact. And also heritage, it's next to the more modern building, not the listed part, so it's deemed acceptable in that respect. And ultimately, the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions set out in your report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Patrick. Alex?
Yes, Chair.
As you're the Thrapston member, do you have any thoughts on this application?
Not too many, Chair. I've read through it. I think in an office environment, air conditioning is always welcomed. Patrick's done a good presentation of it. I think the location is probably the only ideal location for it. My initial concerns would have been around noise, but as it's in a courtyard and the only avenue out of the courtyard goes towards the leisure centre and the school playground or the school field, I don't think noise is a issue at all. But I'm quite open to hearing any additional comments or debates from.
Okay, thank you. Will you propose at the end of the debate, please?
I shall propose at the end of the debate, Chair.
Andy, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I don't see any valid planning reasons for refusal of this or for the imposition of onerous conditions. However, I do see it as being unwise because air conditioning is something that has to be rethought as a concept in the coronavirus era, because aerosols that people breathe out need to be filtered out rather than recirculated because they cause diseases. Hence the famous sick buildings syndrome issue. I think that this is probably something that in 3 years' time will be looked back on and thought of as being an unfortunate choice of policy, but we are not here to discuss policy, we're here to discuss planning reasons.
Yeah, thank you. Peter?
Yes, just a quick question, if I may, Chairman. What is this building going to be used for once we move to Northamptonshire?
Patrick, have you got an answer to that? Patrick, you're still quiet.
So as far as I'm aware, I'm not aware of any changes in terms of the use. I believe we're still operating from Cedar Drive. So I think we just have to treat it on the basis of.
We'll have to wait and see. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments?
Chairman.
Robin.
It's not a question. I can only see half my screen because I've got PE there, Patricia Evans, and I just can't get rid of it. And I missed trying to get rid of it. I missed half the conversation, half the officer's report of the first application. So I don't know what to do, whether just to leave and give up or what. So I can't see.
Can we have a legal opinion, please, Patricia?
I've got Patricia Evans is in the meeting, temporary locum planning lawyer, and I just can't get rid of it.
Thank you, Robin. Patricia, do you have a do you have a comment on the fact that this councillor has not heard the reporting?
Well, I can't because I missed half the report.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, we've heard you. Patricia,
So what do I do? I might as well leave the meeting, all the meeting, because
Robin, leave it, please.
Stuff on the left, and one flashes stuff on the right, and I can't get rid of them. So what do I do? I might as well leave.
Patricia, do you have a comment?
I can't even leave because I can't press that.
Shall I to you, Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as long as the councillor has heard the presentation, the COVID rules for remote meetings requires that all members can be heard, and if ideally that they can be seen. But if the member feels he's not had enough information or he needed more before he makes the decision, then he'll have to make the judgment as to whether or not he votes.
Okay, got that, Robin?
Yeah. In terms of the IT, I can't help you there, but I know what you mean. When you know you can't move the faces around on a Teams meeting, but you should also always be heard and be able to hear.
Okay. Right, let's move on. Lee.
Thank you, Chairman. A quick question. So I understand, obviously, we're going to put acoustic panels alongside the air conditioning units, and that makes sense. Are the first floor windows opening windows? Because if they are, I'm thinking maybe the acoustic panels need to go over the top of the units. But I can't recall whether those windows do open.
Patrick?
I can't remember for certain either. I think they do. From memory, I think the first floor windows do. And I think the acoustic fence is intended to go over. But again, this is from memory.
Patrick, if I could just interject there, it's Mandy here, the Environmental Protection Officer. The acoustic fencing will go up and then be angled back over the top of the air conditioning units to ensure that noise from the units don't cause any major problems to the upper floor office. The upper floor office does have opening windows, but the air conditioning unit is designed to act in such a way that windows should not need to be open, but obviously we can't stop people from doing that should they wish to choose to do so.
Mandy, thank you very much. Okay. Lee, you're right with that. Good. Right, let's move on. Any other comments, please? No? Well, let's go back for a proposal, please, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. In that case, I propose we grant the application with all recommendations as documented.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Yeah, eventually. Peter seconds it. So those in favour say aye.
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 Those not in favour say nay. The ayes have it. So that's passed. Right, let's move on to the next application then.
Chair,
yes.
Can I just, given that we didn't have a named vote, we need to check there were no abstentions as well.
Sorry, who's talking?
Trish Evans.
Trisha?
Yeah.
It's you, sorry.
Yeah, so if we're going to say how many for, how many against, and you're going by a hands up, we should also do abstentions.
You're dead right. I missed that, didn't I? On the last application, were there any abstentions?
Yeah. Yes, I abstained. Dudley Hughes.
One abstention. Thank you. Right. As we were. So we move on to the application on page 3 of our agenda tonight. I think, Ian, you're handling this one, aren't you?
Yes,
Ian,
Chair.
there you go.
Yes.
This one's yours, is it?
Yes, it is. Yes, thank you, Chair.
Can you take us through it, please?
Yes, no problem. I'm just going to get the presentation open for you. Okay, so the application here is number 20-01233 FUL. The reason this application is being brought to committee is because one of the applicants is a member of ENC staff, and the proposal here is to demolish a single-storey detached garage and a single-storey outbuilding that provides an outside toilet and 2 storage rooms, and to replace that with a single-storey side extension. The address here is number 13 Windsor Road in Rushden. As you can see, it's a corner plot. The property has got a large side garden to it. Here's a picture of the property with the existing garage to the front that will be demolished, and the existing flat roof storage buildings to the rear that will also go in favour of the extension. The existing plans here show how the current layout is. There's a walk-through area between the main property and the flat roof storage units. They're all external. There's an outside toilet there, and the plans are to incorporate a larger section of the building on the proposed plans here to create a ground floor 4th bedroom, a larger kitchen with a breakfast room, a cycle store to the front and a workshop area, and then finally a ground floor WC to the front. I've got some photographs here of other additional properties in the area that have this flat roof side arrangement, and there's a variety of different layouts here. Some have got the outbuildings attached to the property, some there's a slight separation, but there is quite a strong precedence in the area for these flat roof side either extensions or garages. So I feel really that the application should be recommended for approval. In terms of the number of bedrooms, it will increase the bedrooms to 4, but Highways have been consulted and they're happy that there's 3 off-road parking spaces available now up for the property. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ian. Right. So we haven't got any speakers on this one. So I think, Barbara, this is your application, I guess.
It is, yes, Chairman.
Would you like to introduce it from your point of view?
Yes, certainly. I don't actually think there is very much to add other than is in the report. I think it is an extensive flat roof extension, and although we've seen examples of others in the area, this one seems to stand out particularly in terms of the scale of it on a corner plot. I think we did investigate whether a pitch roof could be added, and it was generally decided that it couldn't, or it couldn't be done satisfactorily. Yep. So I'll open it up to other members for any comments they may have. Otherwise, I feel there's little else to say and minded to approve.
Thank you, Barbara. Anyone, any comments? Dudley?
Yes, I did think some time ago we had decided we were against flat roof extensions, although obviously it's more expensive to put a pitch roof. I think it's a shame, although I know the others are there, but as this is larger than them and on a corner plot, I think it's a shame that there's a flat roof extension with all the problems that means, and it's very unsightly.
Well, I think we agree with you. At the briefing the other day, we did ask the officer to see if it could be changed into another sort of roof, which doesn't look quite as bad as the flat roof. And the answer, as Barbara has just said, was no. So, Andy, did you want to speak?
Sorry, no. Can I just...
Ian?
No, thank you.
Yes. Sorry, if I can just go back to that. I mean, I think we have to determine the application in front of us, which has been submitted with a flat roof. The question that was asked of me in briefing was exploring about a pitch roof, and I said I thought with the picture of that roof on the main house being so great because it's one of the bookended properties, a pitch roof may also look a little bit out of place if members felt that a flat roof did. I wasn't sure that a pitch roof would actually look, or make that much of a difference in terms of how it would relate to the house.
Yep, thank you, Ian. Any other comments from members? Can't see any. Barbara, it's back to you then, please, for a proposal.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. In that case, I propose we grant the application subject to the conditions set out in the report.
I'll second
Andy,
that.
are you seconding it?
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
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 All those against say nay. And any abstentions? None. So that's passed. Thank you. Let's move on to the next application then, which is on page 8 and is Rockingham Speedway. Who's going to introduce this one? Is it Reese? Are you there, Reese? I've got Reese Bradshaw down as this one. Which officer's handling this one?
Jen Wallace.
Jenny, thank you. Come on then, Jenny, tell us all about it. Say something, Jenny.
Can anyone hear me?
Only just.
Right, sorry, my computer's being very slow. I'm just going to try and get my presentation up.
Thank you.
Sorry, am I still on the screen?
Can't see it yet.
That worked?
No.
No, just bear with me. My computer's being very slow. Sorry. Is anybody else able to share my presentation for me? Oh, I might have it now.
Whilst we're talking, Robin, can you see everything now? You're muted.
The answer is no.
Have you tried to enlarge the screen out to full size?
Yes.
And that hasn't helped?
Nope.
Okay.
I've got this 4-inch square with Patricia Evans on it.
Thank you. Right, Jenny, carry on.
Can you see my screen yet?
Yes, we can now see the front page.
Right, yes. Fab, thank you. Let me start it. Okay, so this the detailed officer's report is taken as read. There are quite a few updates to the report, including a correction to paragraph 7.26 with confirmation from the lead local flood authority that surface water drainage has been adequately addressed. There is also a request that condition 20 be removed from the application. Further information has been provided within the update report with regards to the previous use on the site and the capped area within the site. I will summarise the key points before you enter into your debate. So this is a proposal for the erection of a maintenance unit, wash bay and ancillary items in connection with the vehicle and refurbishment storage at the Rockingham Speedway site. The application proposes to resurface this car parking area from loose gravel to tarmac and the provision of car parking and HGV parking. Planning permission has been granted on the site for the use of the land for automotive logistics, including storage of vehicles, vehicle parts and refurbishment of vehicles, as well as ancillary auctions. This application therefore only relates to the erection of the building and resurfacing of the site. Principle of the use of the site for automotive logistics has already been established, and the employment generating use is supported in policy terms. The development would further support the employment use within the site. So relatively central to the site is where the proposed maintenance unit is going to be, with ancillary structures to the south. The unit would be purpose-built, and whilst it is a very large structure, it would be comparable to the size and appearance of buildings within the neighbouring industrial estate and the recently approved maintenance unit to the north of the site. The building would not be out of character with the surrounding area and industrial nature of the site. Access to the site is from the currently from the north off Mitchell Road. The main access to the site will eventually be provided from the south-west via this private drive, which connects to Gretton Road further to the east. Connectivity to the north access will remain, including the pedestrian and cycle links, and there is an existing footway and cycle link along the southern road. It has been identified that the proposal would result in the loss of some trees. And if I just go to my photographs, which are a little bit grainy, there are some sort of immature trees, relatively young ones within the site that aren't considered to be of any significant value, and the quality of the land is not considered to be of any significant value either. So it would result in the loss of some trees, but there is going to be some additional landscaping around the balancing ponds within the site and the access, which mitigates for the loss of the trees within the site, and we consider that the employment benefits that this will bring outweigh any harm. Issues relating to drainage, lighting and contamination have been satisfactorily addressed or can be controlled by conditions. So the officer's recommendation is to grant approval as set out in the officer's report with the requested removal of condition 20. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. The ward member here would normally be Roger Clitheroe, who is not available tonight. And I asked, I think, Councillor Mercer, Andy, if he would introduce this proposal to us. So, Andy, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. In general, this is a reasonable application, and in principle, I don't see any significant problem with it. However, I do see some problems with the detail of this application. The biggest issue is that it overlays an area of significant contamination that has been capped. I asked for a copy of the plans of the capped area and overlaid it on the plans for the site, and roughly 25% of the site at the eastern end is over the top of the capped and contaminated area. I don't know if anybody can see anything, but this is the plans that we were given, and this area here is the area that is contaminated and capped. Now the problem is that the water resistant membrane that prevents the very nasty stuff from getting into groundwater as part of the capping system is only about 1 metre deep in places, and there is a need to put 16-metre lamp standards plus fencing posts into that area. Now the officers have suggested that they can control this by condition. I am nervous about that. Specifically, the officer report includes the following statement. The potential risks of damaging the capping layer when putting in the foundations of the boundary fence and the lighting columns have been referred back to the environmental consultant. Now, that is fairly strong language from an officer, and I am nervous that it may not prove practicable to put in standard lighting columns or standard fencing posts in this environment. It may well require an unusual type of design in order to avoid risking the capping layer. As a result, I agree entirely with the officer comment that it's been referred back to the environmental consultant, and I personally would recommend that this application be deferred until we have that consultant's report. But there's a couple of other points I'd like to pick up as well while we're at it. The condition 16 about fire hydrants and sprinklers, it's been pointed out that building regs covers much of this. It does cover sprinklers, and it does cover the requirement for fire hydrants, but I do not believe it would cover the issue of land use that the fire hydrant involves. Specifically, the fire hydrant must be fed from a significant water source, which means it's got to have piping, which has got to be fed to it across the land. Once again, without knowing specifically where the fire hydrants are going to be and how deep they will penetrate, it's not clear whether or not they are jeopardizing potentially the impermeable membrane that's under the ground. So I would prefer that some sort of condition be there, retained, perhaps reworded. The sprinkler issue is something I feel strongly about, but which is not a planning matter. As the officer has pointed out, it is an environmental, it is a building regs matter. But the fire hydrant outside the buildings and needing to be fed by piping is a planning matter, in my opinion. Those are the two main issues with this, and I feel that we should defer it until we have got that environmental consultant's report and have had an opportunity to consider whether or not that would require us to change our recommendation for some of the planning conditions on this application when it subsequently comes back.
Thank you, Andy. Sound sense. Can I just have, before we go on, can I just ask Jenny if she's got any comments on what Councillor Mercer's just said? Jenny? Jenny? Speak to us.
It's Mandy here. In the absence of Jenny coming online at the moment, I am very familiar with the area that's of concern, and it is my feeling that lighting and the foundations for the boundary fencing can be designed appropriately. The matter has been referred back to the environmental consultant. As part of the planning conditions, there will be a remedial scheme will need to be submitted to the council, and part of that remedial scheme will be the design of the foundations to any column lighting and fencing. Whether the foundations have to be more out of the ground than usual, I don't know. I'm not a lighting engineer, but my feeling is that it can be dealt with quite without any problems by the use of the planning conditions and having it worded into the remediation statement.
When we get that advice, Mandy, do we have the ability to say yay or nay again to those revised drawings, if there are any?
Yes, that would certainly be done. Sorry, Jenny, I would assume that would be done by way of submission of planning application to discharge conditions. But over to Jenny on that one.
Yeah,
thank you, Jenny.
Sorry, thank you. Condition 21 is about the lighting columns and fencing, which gives us that control that they have to submit the details of the location and depth of the foundations with that. We have to approve that plan before they can do any installation of lights and fencing, so it gives us that control if we're not happy with it, and we would consult with environmental protection on that, so we're comfortable that that controls that issue, and if it's not acceptable then we wouldn't discharge that condition.
Okay, understand. Perhaps you would include the chairman and the vice chairman and the ward member in that decision when it's taken.
Chairman.
Yeah, okay. Right.
Councillor Jill Mercer here. Could I comment? We've been told that on page 15 that the capping may be as little as 500 millimetres below the surface. So, as well as the lighting and the boundary fencing, I'm concerned in the same frame that I mean, the lighting obviously has to have cables to it, otherwise you won't have any electricity. So there you've got the utilities, you've got all the other utilities, you've got sewage pipes, possibly broadband, the water for the fire hydrants, there's drainage ponds, etc. I'm just not convinced that that condition 21 covers all of those things. Now it may well be because the capping area is to, if you like, when I look at it, to the right of the map, and that the building is to the left of the map, let's say, that, for instance, the foundations wouldn't go near the capping. And that may be the same for the drainage. It may be same for many of the other things like fire hydrants, for instance. But I just don't think we've got enough information to make sure that, I mean, there's arsenic in that area under that capping. If that gets out into the water supply, we've got a disaster on our hands. So I really feel we need more confidence in this, and I would be happy to back a deferment so until we get it.
Okay, Jill, thank you.
It's Mandy again here, Councillor Mercer. Thank you. You did raise some very valid points there. I did look very closely at this planning application. I am extremely familiar with the Soot Hills waste and the capping layer. I was the Environment Agency officer that oversaw the actual installation of the capping layer way back in the 90s, and also when part of it was relocated as part of the Rockingham Motor Speedway development some years later, so I am very familiar with it. I did look at the drainage, and there will be no alteration to the drainage over the capped area, so that's fine. The capped area at the moment is actually, the vast majority, it has a tarmac surface, and that won't be changed in any way, shape or form. So there'll be no additional excavations into the capped area other than for the lighting columns. Given that the capped area isn't disturbed in any way, shape or form, there should be no additional risk to groundwater or to human health. The capped area does not extend beyond that existing line on the plan that the councillors have before them, and the new building is actually going to be outside the capped area, so there shouldn't be any additional risks to the capping layer from the building itself or any additional works to the left of that road.
Mandy, thank you very much.
Can I just come back on that? Mandy, if I could just ask you through the chair, there was a in the pack that came out, or the extra slides came out, there was one that said drainage, and it had a red line across the area. But unfortunately, it was such small print. We tried really hard to see what the crib said, what that line meant, and we just could not work it out. And I didn't know if that was a drainage pipe or if it was just some other demarcation. But certainly the other information you've given us gives a lot more confidence that you actually know a lot about this area.
Indeed.
Yeah, with respect to the red line, I'll be quite honest, councillors, I can't remember exactly what it was. There were some issues initially with the drainage plan that I wasn't very happy with, in particular the installation of attenuation tank over the capped area. Once that was brought to the attention of the applicant, that was removed. I think the drainage, as it's not going to be disturbed, and it has been working quite happily, for want of a better expression, for many, many years, that there is no additional risk. We have asked, as part of the discovery plan or the remediation plan, that there's monitoring of the local watercourse during the works to make sure that there's no additional risk from pollution at that time.
Thank you, Mandy. That's great.
Can I come back, Chair?
Hang on, Jill wants to come back again.
Yeah. At 6.6, it did refer to conditions asked for by the Environment Agency, but it didn't actually tell us what they were. It just said available on the website, and I must admit I didn't get the time. I only got these plans today because of the loss of it in the post. I just wondered if those conditions have been incorporated. And the other thing was that page 32, there's an informative. It's quite a lengthy informative. I can't remember exactly what it says now, but I just wondered. It's all about the landfill and the landfill gas and the waste removal, etc. That's all in informatives. Surely that's not very strong. That's an information, but it doesn't actually bind the developer.
Again, if I could comment back on that, Councillor Mercer. I have been in discussion with the Environment Agency all through this process with respect to risks to controlled waters, and they are in agreement with ourselves in that the development can be safely secured by if we use the planning conditions to agree a remedial scheme and have it carried out. The Environment Agency has very similar contamination conditions to the ones that we generally use here at East Northants Council, and it would have been a very similar condition to what I have proposed and which is being included in the Planning Commission if it is granted. With respect to the old landfill, the whole of Dean Quarry is a landfill basically, and the logistics centre to the north that is already almost built out lies within the boundaries of Dean Quarry landfill site. As part of the site investigation, landfill gas was monitored and it was found not to pose a risk. The types of waste contained within Dean Quarry landfill site as a whole are generally not of the type that produce significant amounts of landfill gas. For example, there's no great quantity of putrescible waste like you'd get in a domestic landfill. So that's all been looked at and there doesn't appear to be any significant risk from that to the development.
Thank you, Mandy. Makes me feel more comfortable. Anyone else got any comments?
Can I just come back, Chair?
Jenny, yes, please. Jenny.
It was just to say that the Environment Agency conditions are very, very similar to what Environmental Protection were asking for, and I checked them against each other. So what the Environment Agency requested are covered by the conditions within the report. Yeah,
thank you, Jenny. Are there any other member comments? Councillor Lee Wilkes.
Thank you, Chairman. No, I don't claim to be any expert when it comes to capping and dangerous gases and talk of arsenic, so I am listening to other members' comments here. But if I can just, because I think I'm getting slightly confused here. The officer just was saying that there's no additional drainage going into here, so we're not going to be digging into that cap and it's only going to be lampposts and lighting. But it seems to say on the plan that I'm looking at that the new car parking area will be positively drained and connected to the East Basin. So I don't quite understand what that means, but does that not mean that new drainage is going in on that part of the car park?
Jenny?
So there is already an eastern and western balancing pond within the site. So the drainage, it already drains to those two balancing ponds. So the idea is it would connect through to those. I think that dotted red line on the plan that Councillor Mercer referred to is the catchment of the eastern balancing pond. If that's the red line, there was a dashed red line that showed the catchment of that balancing pond that's in place already. So the two balancing ponds are there, and there is existing foul and surface water drainage in place on that site already, and it's to connect through to those existing utilities.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anyone else, any comments? Annabelle?
We haven't got an Annabelle on this committee.
We haven't got an Annabelle, have we?
Harriet.
Would that be me?
That would be you.
Perfect, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on a different point that was in the update sheet, and that was the suggested slight rewording for condition 16 on the lighting. And given that there have been concerns raised by local parishes about lighting overspill, I thought it was important that that rewording was included if we are to grant this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet. Have you got that, Jenny?
Yes, thank you. Can I also come back on something Councillor Mercer said about condition 20 about the fire hydrants and sprinklers? If members were minded to retain that condition, we could just remove the word sprinkler systems out of the wording of that condition and just leave it as fire hydrants and associated infrastructure.
Okay, fine.
Chairman, that would fix my concern with that particular condition.
Good, thank you. Well, Andy, I think that's the debate. It's up to you now, please, for a proposal.
Well, Chair, clearly we've just said that we would accept a change to condition 20, and condition 16 may well need some strengthening. My big concern is I think it's condition 21, which is the construction of the lighting columns and the fencing posts. just saying that we would require a report and a plan before we would accept it, but then never bringing it back to committee, if we don't get an acceptable one, is something concerning to me. I would be prepared to recommend that we grant or delegate authority to the Head of Planning Services to grant, subject to the amended conditions, and to the chair, vice chair, and one ward member, that the enhancement of condition 21 to protect the impermeable layer was actually acceptable, because I find it very hard to see how someone can design a foundation for a lighting column 16 metres high that doesn't penetrate more than about 20 inches into the ground, maybe 30. I
understand, Andy, but the officer has said that the designs are going to come back to us for approval of the lighting thing. So if we see them and approve them, fine.
That's exactly what I'm proposing, Chair. I'm saying that we delegate to the Head of Planning Services to grant, subject to that condition being reworded to the satisfaction of the Chair, Vice Chair and Ward Member.
Thank you. Carolyn, then Jill.
Councillor Mercer's just clarified my point. I was just going to ask if it was the wording of the condition or the actual discharging of the condition, but you just clarified that it was the actual wording of the condition.
Thank you. Jill?
What I was going to say was that, yes, it says that they have to submit and get it approved, but the actual reason is what we're getting at, is to protect the capping liner. So it's clear that that is the reason for that condition, but I just wondered if we might need to beef it up a little bit and say, in order to make sure that the wording of the actual condition, in order to make sure that the capping is not breached or something to that effect, which we could delegate to officers, and Phil and myself to just agree later. Is that possible? Is that possible to beef that up?
Don't know. We'll ask Jennifer. Can we do that?
Yeah, I can look at some revised wording to add some additional sort of words around the impermeable layer and no breach of that within the design of the layout. So I can have a look at rewording it, and my understanding is then that goes to the chair, vice chair, and a ward member, if I understand Councillor Mercer correctly.
Thank you. That's fine. Carolyn, you've got your hand up again.
Yes, sorry, I just wanted to establish who the ward member was for that area, because if it's Councillor Glitherow, we won't be able to...
For the moment, I think Harriet is the nearest thing, aren't you, Harriet?
No, Harriet is not. Harriet's in Chelveston.
Not me.
It would probably be better to make it Andy, I would have thought.
Well,
I think if we go through Andy, he's the one making the proposal, so we'll use Andy in this case. Yeah, good idea.
Chair, Vice Chair and Councillor Andy Mercer.
Yeah, I'm content with that.
Yes. Okay, so can you just refresh our memories, please, what the proposal is, Andy?
The proposal is that we grant to the Head of Planning Services permission to, we delegate to the Head of Planning Services the power to grant this application, subject to a rewording and strengthening of condition 21 to protect the impermeable membrane from penetration by the foundations of the lighting column and the fencing posts, and that the wording be agreed by the Head of Planning Services, the Chair, Vice Chair and me acting as ward member.
I got you, sir. That's proposed. Are you seconding this, Peter?
Can I just clarify a point first?
I was just
a minute, Peter.
Sorry, I was just going to suggest to Andy that not just the lighting and the other thing you mentioned, but if anything may impact on that impermeable layer, just to cover all bases.
Yeah.
If I could just interject again there, councillors, there is a requirement within the planning condition for the remedial scheme that all the works are overseen by an environmental engineer and a verification report submitted post works. You could potentially have you could potentially incorporate the excavation of the lighting columns and the boundary fencing foundations into the remedial scheme if it gave you greater comfort.
Thank you, Jenny. That's a good idea. Carolyn.
Just to confirm on Councillor Mercer's proposal that also includes the rewording of condition 16 as per the update sheet and condition 20 to remove the sprinklers from the wording.
Correct. Yes.
Chairman, there are also a couple of other conditions on the update sheet which were suggested as well. I think there's a TV interference one, certainly I remember.
If you want me to speak, there's some suggested rewording of condition 17, which is on the landscaping to make sure that there's no that the planting isn't deep rooting. Again, that's for the protection of the capping layer. And I was asked about a TV interference condition, which is also on the update sheet with some wordings that you could use if you consider necessary.
Well, I'm perfectly happy for those two amendments to be included in the resolution.
So Andy has proposed that big bunch of words now. Can I have a seconder for it?
So can we just make sure that all of the conditions that the officers have put on the update sheet are included?
I think they are, aren't they?
Well, I'm not sure if we mentioned them all just then.
Well, let's just say that, as far as I'm concerned, all the conditions mentioned in the update sheet should be, a new condition should be added to the consent if it should be granted and issued. And the amendments that we've debated, I think we're happy with.
Thank you. So once again, I say, please let's stop the debate now, and can I have a seconder?
Happy, seconded.
Thank you very much. Those in favour of Councillor Mercer's, Andy, his proposal, can you say aye now?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone who's not in favour of that proposal, can you say nay? And can we have any abstentions? Then that's passed. Thank you very much, guys. So moving right along, we now have page 35, Rushden Lakes. So I think, Dean, you should start us off with this one, please.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Thank you, Chair. I wasn't intending to do a presentation at this point because there's a change on the update sheet to the proposed resolution and recommendation. When the report was written, it was written in anticipation that the ecology issues would have all been resolved, but that has not happened as quickly as we would have liked. We're still awaiting some further feedback from key consultees, Natural England being the main one because they've objected to the application. So there hasn't been any change to the update sheet since the original version came out yesterday, but the proposal now is to recommend deferral of the application to a future meeting to allow for that process to take place so we can advise you better at a future meeting. So I was intending not to do a presentation now unless members vote that they want to debate the item.
No, I don't think we'll see the presentation when it comes back. If members are happy, can I have someone to propose that first, please, from the members?
I propose that we defer it for the reasons given by the officer.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that?
Seconded.
Those in favour say aye.
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 Those against say nay. Those abstaining say aye. Then that's carried. I hope the speakers are happy with that. I'm sorry to keep you hanging around for us not to decide it, but we weren't sure whether it was going to be deferred or not, but the office is quite right to defer it, so we've got sufficient information to decide. So there'll be another meeting on it at a day in the future. So that's an easy one. The next one is on page 71, which is Rectory Farm in Achurch. And I think, Sonny, are you there? Yes, you are. Sunny,
Yes.
can you take us through this one, please?
Yeah, well, thanks, Chair. Just get my presentation up.
We can see it.
Brilliant. Sorry, my screen's just frozen. Okay.
That's it.
Members will be familiar with this application as it was presented to the Plan Management Committee in November last year, where it was deferred to allow for consideration of a revised plan, further comments and a physical site visit, which is fully detailed within the officer's report and update sheet, which is taken as read. The location plan, site plan circulated with the committee report are incorrect, but the correct ones have been circulated and shown on the screen. The revised plan submitted by the agent shows the rear wall of the extension 2 as denoted by paragraph 2.3 of the committee report being reduced by 150 millimeters from the boundary wall. This plan shows the series of extensions proposed which correlate with the details within the committee report at paragraph 2.1 to 2.4. This plan shows the elevations of the proposed extensions as well as barn 1 and barn 2. Extension 1 is the single-storey side extension which would be used as a garage and storage room. Extension 2 is the linked side extension which joins the main dwelling and barn 1, which forms part of the proposed annex conversion. Extension 3 is the single-storey extension which would be used as a boot room. Barn 2 would be used as a home gym and garden storeroom. This plan shows the neighbouring properties in context of the host dwelling. The neighbouring properties have expressed concerns of impact on their residential amenity, as noted within the update sheet and officers' report. Officers consider that the proposed development would not result in a significant impact to the neighbouring residential amenity. To summarise, matters relating to principal development, character, historic environment, residential amenity and highways is considered to be acceptable and in compliance with local and national policies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sunny. So we now start with the speakers, of which we have 2 on this subject. The first is Alison T, who is an objector.
Hello, I'm here.
Alison.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, Alison. Speak up, though.
I will do, thank you.
Go
Hello,
on.
I'm Alison T and I'm speaking today on behalf of my own property, the stables, and also the dairy and the hayloft in A Church for the objection towards this planning application. We thank those members of the committee who were able to attend the site visit in December, and we hope that this has provided greater context to the application, the setting of our properties and our objections. We still have significant issues with the application, and many of our specific points of objection were unfortunately not included in either of the officers' reports. We also hope you've been able to see unredacted versions of all our letters submitted, as the redacting on the portal makes it very difficult to relate specific objections back to the proposal. We request the committee's full and proper consideration for the following: the objections relating to noise from the roof lights in barn 1 and the proposed conditions, conditions relating to the garage and the use of the space above this, the general overbearing nature of the development. We remain very concerned about the proposed roof lights in barn 1 due to their proximity to the master bedrooms of both the stables and the dairy. In a rural area, there is a reasonable expectation that the level of amenity and privacy will be higher than in an urban area, which is not taken into consideration in the report. The distance between the master bedroom doors and windows of both the dairy and the stables is less than 4 metres to barn 1, and as such, the issues of noise is likely to present serious issues for all parties, especially in the summer. We again request that if the committee are minded to grant the application, that additional conditions are imposed to ensure that any roof lights are non-openable, the existing windows remain blocked up and obscured from the inside, and no mezzanine floor can be installed in barn 1. We're also very concerned about the overbearing impact of the garage extension on the hayloft and the stables and our amenity. The garage is currently proposed at 6.7 metres tall with 2 floors and an external staircase. We would request that it is single storey, allowing the roof space for storage, and an additional condition is applied to ensure that the space above the garage remains as storage and cannot be used as habitable living space in the future. We note that since the applicants have become aware of the proposed conditions, they have chosen to allegedly start construction of a single-storey side extension as permitted development. This goes against the views of the Senior Conservation Officer with regards to his concerns of the impact of the unbalancing of the property, which is an undesignated heritage asset. These are a summary of our concerns and objections, and we hope you take the time to consider these before making a decision. Thank you for the opportunity to share these with you today.
Thank you very much. And the second speaker on this topic is, let me get it right, Susan Allen, who is speaking on behalf of the agent, or she is the agent.
Hello. Hello.
Hello,
Yep.
Susan.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone.
You've got 3 minutes.
Yep. Thank you. My name's Susan. I'm the acting agent for the planning application at Rectory Farm. We're pleased the application has been recommended for approval and that it is supported by all consultees. Throughout the progress of this planning application, we've taken on board and considered all valid comments and concerns raised by the neighbours, parish members, as well as the planning and conservation officers. In particular, we have taken stock to address comments made by Thorpe A Church Parish Council and have amended the scheme accordingly. The Parish Council subsequently have no objections to the proposals, which is stated in its latest response on the 9th of September 2020. In addition, the proposed scheme was further revised to resolve concerns raised by the Conservation Officer. I'm pleased to say the Conservation Officer has no objection to the scheme, which is stated in his response of the 21st of October 2020. With regards to the neighbours' concerns, Rectory Farmhouse is positioned at 90 degrees to all of the neighbouring dwellings. Care has been taken to ensure there is no direct overlooking or loss of amenity to any of the neighbouring occupiers. It should be recognised that the proposed extensions and alterations meet all privacy and amenity guidelines operated by the Development Management Officers. As a result, the proposal has no adverse effect on neighbouring properties. Hopefully this was clear following the site visit made by the committee members. The planning application has been reviewed and considered by the planning officer. An additional site visit has been conducted to further assess the proposed extensions. The planning officer was then able to support the final proposal and recommend the application for approval. I would hope, having amended the proposal in accordance with the recommendations made by the planning and conservation officers, that the members of the committee would also be able to support the application. Thank you for your time, and I have no further comments to make.
Thank you very much. Those are the speakers. Unfortunately, once again, we don't have the ward member for this particular area with us. So I did ask, I think I asked you, Jill, to take this one, didn't I?
Yes, that's because I was on the site visit, Chairman. So
Yes.
I'm.
So Councillor Mercer will propose this application.
Well, I will bring some points first. As members will have seen, there have been several versions of this application, and for instance, the Senior Conservation Officer did initially have some objections, but now said that the last thing he said was that as long as there were no dormer windows in the garage, that he was happy with it, and they have been removed. The Parish Council initially had objections, but they now support it. Although they did make one suggestion that I saw, Sonny, perhaps you could just clarify for me. They did say that would it be possible? I think it was the Thorpe A Church Parish Council. Whether the roof lights that are obviously the points of contention that are on the boundary of the dairy, whether they could be moved to the other side of the building. Obviously, we have to view what we've got in front of us, but was that ever considered?
Sonny?
The roof lights, is that on barn 2? Sorry.
Yes.
The roof lights on barn 2 are existing, so.
No, the new ones on barn 1.
No, so the application is assessed as it's proposed, right. And like I said, in the officer's
so
report,
that's your answer, Jill, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. It's been suggested that there's a permitted development condition. I'm very pleased about that because it is a very crowded site. It's quite unusual. These other buildings is you know, the hayloft and dairy and stables are all very close, but that's how they were built, so we have to accept that. So if there was to be any sort of permitted development, you know, I think that would need to come back to a committee. I just wondered whether condition 4, condition 3, sorry, it says the annex hereby permitted shall only be used as ancillary. I just wondered if the annex was sufficiently prescriptive of what was intended with that, because it's obviously the barn 1, because they are currently it's used for office and it's then going to have a bedroom and a kitchen in it. So I just wondered if we might change that wording slightly. The main, or one of the main issues, a letter that I was received, was these windows, the Velux windows that are on the boundary with the garden of the next door dairy. They had asked if they could be fixed closed and whether they could be obscured. The officer didn't feel that that was really reasonable. When we were there, we did actually take a photo of Dean actually standing in front of the building, and he was quite tall, 6 foot, I think he said. He didn't quite come up to the eaves, and then the roof light was way above him, so we didn't feel that anyone could look through it. But the neighbour have asked to have a condition about not having a mezzanine floor. So the officers have put one in the update sheet, which I think would be a good idea, because obviously where the floor is at the moment, they, you know, you wouldn't be able to look out of it. But if you had a mezzanine floor, you would. So that's good. But their main problem is noise. I mean, looking out obviously would be if there was mezzanine floor as well. I don't know what other members think about that. I wouldn't have thought there was potentially a lot of noise. That sort of bit, obviously, as the speaker did say, it's a very quiet sort of rural area. Let's put another point. Just put a number next to it. 7.17.
We shall go on to the other members' comments.
Yeah. Oh yes, it said at 7.17. It said in the middle. It says a condition can be imposed to alleviate this harm, and I didn't know if there was a condition. I think that was in terms of the windows. So perhaps Sonny could come back to us on that. But I'd like to hear what other members think. Thank you.
Okay. Sonny, have you got a thought on that window situation?
Yes. Yeah. So as Councillor Mercer pointed out, the windows will be at high enough level, so it won't allow occupants to look out of it. And in respect to noise, the noise generated from that will be reasonably expected from a residential dwelling. So from any residential dwelling in that area.
Okay, thanks, Sonny. Councillor Andy Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. I also went on the site visit. I also saw the Mr. Wishart standing against the building and by the windows. To be quite frank, you'd need to be about 7 foot tall, maybe even 7'6" to stare out of the window, unless you've got a mezzanine. So putting a condition to prevent a mezzanine would definitely make that an exceedingly unlikely risk. There will be a slight loss of amenity due to potential for noise. It's a judgment call as to whether or not the amount of noise amenity loss was sufficient to refuse, bearing in mind the NPPF says there's a presumption in favour of sustainable development, and there is always a degree of weight in favour of granting, so that to refuse a planning application you need to have a significant weight in the other direction. This is a mild degree of loss of amenity. It's stretching it to say it's sufficient to overcome the presumption in favour of sustainable development in the NPPF.
Thank you, Andy. Anyone else, any comments? I can't see any hands up. Jill, it's back to you then, please, for a proposal.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. It was mentioned about the, I just remember the speaker mentioned about the storage above the garage unit, the other extension, the other side from the barn that we've just been talking about. I understood that was for storage, Sonny. Is there anything to stop that being used as a habitable space?
Yeah, correct, Jim. I say it will be used storage, and condition that has been suggested in an update sheet would restrict it being used for living accommodation. Okay,
thank you. And just to clarify, because I couldn't see it when the presentation came up, there's a gap still between that garage and the other barn? Is there where you can walk through?
Yes, correct. There is there's a gap between the side extension of the barn 2 and the proposed garage extension.
Because there was an oil tank around the back there, and we were obviously concerned that they had to be able to get access to that. So obviously they would be able to if there was a pathway there. Well, as Councillor Mercer said, I think we've got some.
Yes, if you could just hang on a minute, Jill. I think
Sir Wilkes would like to come in.
Lee, you want to have a word, do you?
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I was trying to put my hand up, but I couldn't get my camera to come on. Can I just want a point of clarification? So the speaker, one of the speakers did mention about the first floor above the garage, and that it can't be. They would like it not to be habitable. So can I just ask Sonny to confirm that condition that you put on the update sheet that says no mezzanine floor or living accommodation within the roof space, that covers both, or it covers the entire development, does it? The garage and the roof lights that we've just been talking about?
Correct.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Jill, a proposal, please.
Yeah, can you just tell me what page that? Oh, well, I've got it. No, that's the mezzanine floor. That's on barn 1, isn't it? But that doesn't actually cover barn 2, does it?
It does. The condition reads no mezzanine floor or living accommodation within the roof space of the development hereby permitted. So that's the development as a whole.
So it covers everything. Yeah. Which I think Sonny just said.
No problem. Okay. Well, then in that case, then I will propose that we grant this application.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Andy, thank you.
I'll second it with the additional conditions that have been discussed during this short debate and are in the update sheet.
Yes, okay. So it's been proposed and accepted and seconded that we approve this application. Can I have your votes, please? All in favour say yes or yay.
Aye.
Aye. Or aye. Those not in favour say no. Those abstaining say yes. Then that's carried. Thank you very much. So back to the, what's it, 8 o'clock? Back to the second page of applications. So we're on to page 87. make sure I'm not skipping one, which is the application relating to Boots Barn. Amy, I think that's yours, isn't it?
That's correct. Thank you, Chair.
Would you like to introduce it to us, please?
I will do. I'll just share my screen. Bear with me. Can you all see that?
No.
Yeah.
Is it showing now?
No.
No.
How about now?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Here we go.
Yeah.
That's okay, Amy. You can see it now.
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Just a quick update from me, given that the members will remember the application from committee on the 9th of December. I'll take the report as read. So the application for 3 offices and associated storage was deferred due to confusion over whether Brooks Road is adopted. The local highway authority has looked into this further and can confirm that it is adopted. This means that the road is maintained at public expense and any improvements to the highway, such as the proposed passing places, would be maintained by the highway authority, subject to a 278 agreement. The passing places will be 2 metres wide with 2 metre long tapers either end. And the highway authority's position has not changed and there is no objection to the proposal from them. Just to draw members' attention to condition 17 that's been reworded to clarify the intended use for the proposed B8 storage unit, and also to the details on the latest update sheet, particularly with regard to the trigger point for the implementation of the proposed passing places. And just to finalise, your officers recommend approval subject to the suggested conditions in the reports and the update sheet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Amy. We have 3 speakers on this application. The first one is Rachel Lenton, who is an objector. Are you there, Rachel?
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Go on then, shoot.
Thank you. I hope you all received the additional information I sent across to Amy, along with some additional photographs. I want to point the councillors into the size of the planning of the development, from 549 square metres up to 1,340 square metres, an increase of 242.98%. I know the highways have said that the road is adopted, but as per the signage on the road, it is still a gated road, as signed on the gate posts at the end of the road. Again, the car park movements, 32 to 37 spaces, which has been confirmed, which is an extra 64 to 74 peak movements per day additional. That doesn't include additional vehicles for visiting people and additional possible HGVs for the building B8 unit, which could include Build Base Higgins, as it is a building B8 builder's yard, which came on to the unit was actually builder's yard has already been refused in 2018/19, so that is just an additional as well. There's a routing agreement for the HGVs not to go through the Denford Ash end, but I know planning do not consult on flooding, but since the meeting on the 9th of December, the road has flooded twice towards the road end. So what happens with the routing agreement for HGVs if the road is inaccessible due to flooding from Rawn's End, plus all the vehicles that park outside the housing at the Rawn's End of the road? Please accept my points as an objection to the site being going ahead, and also please
take into consideration during the construction of the site, there will be a large amount of heavy good vehicles, and where will all the people, especially on Sunday when I stepped out onto the road, there were 12 people walking, cycling with children, age ranges from 4 probably up to sort of 80s, using the road. Would the passing places, which are currently 9 informal passing places, they are field gateways and people's drives. So please take that in consideration to the state of the road. Thank you very much for letting me speak, Chairman.
Thank you, Rachel. The second speaker is Councillor H. Howell, and she is speaking on behalf of Raunds Town Council. Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Anyone who knows Brooks Road in Raunds knows that it is not fit for any other purpose than light vehicle movement, farm machinery, deliveries, walkers, cyclists, horse riders, and the odd kayak when it floods, which is very often. In fact, I don't think it's even open to traffic now. The road constantly turns into a river, as you will see from the pictures submitted on the planning portal. This road is impassable when flooded. The damage all this flooding does to the road is extensive, and the surface is broken and uneven. The increase in traffic from this application would cause a significant risk to those who already use the road. There is no public footpath on either side for the full length. There is a riding stable situated on a nasty bend. Horses and large trucks do not mix, and lives will be put in danger. The stable users, old and young, hack out along Brooks Road. Cyclists and families use the road for recreational use constantly. We see that this application, the applicant proposes improvements to just 4 of the existing 9 informal passing places. What is meant by informal? Are these field entrances not big enough to allow a truck to pull in? But what about all the parked cars outside the houses? How will a truck pass these? The road is barely wide enough to get a car past. And what if the road is flooded from the Raunds end? Are the trucks supposed to enter from the Ringsted-Denford end? What about the weight restrictions through the villages? You will then see trucks driving 2.5 miles down a track that is substandard, and they could easily meet another track coming the other way. The road from Denford is 2.5 miles long. There are limited number of passing places from the junction of Denford Road up to the bridge over the A45, but the remaining 1.7 miles does not have any passing places and remains a single track road with no suitable verge to pull onto. This adds to the problem of large trucks having to reverse. We appreciate it can be difficult to refuse an application without material reasons, but Raunds Town Council has given very comprehensive reasons for refusal, as now outlined in the adopted Raunds Neighbourhood Plan. Policy R10, creating safer roads and streets for pedestrians and cycles. Policy R13, this site is not designated as an employment site. Policy R14C does not adversely impact on the amenity of existing and future residents. Policy R14E, it does not lead to significant traffic or highway safety issues. Members, Raunds Town Council urge you to consider the safety of their residents and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And the last speaker on this topic is Carl Stott, who is the agent.
Hello.
Carl?
Hello, can you hear? Hello?
Yep, carry on.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak in support of my client's application this evening. My name's Carl Stott. I'm a Chartered Town Planner and Director of 1947 Limited. Rather than repeat my presentation from the previous committee, I'll instead focus on highways-related matters. As has been confirmed, Brooks Road is adopted and maintained at public expense, and the improvements to the 4 passing places will be located wholly within the confines of highways land. The cost of these improvements will be borne by the applicant, with their future maintenance undertaken by the Highways Authority via a Section 278 agreement. The Highway Authority raises no objection to the scheme, with improvements to the passing places considered to mitigate any impact caused by increased traffic movements to and from the development once operational. I note reference in paragraph 4.2 of your officer's update sheet to a suggestion the improvements should perhaps be provided prior to the commencement of development. However, this would fail to satisfy all 6 tests for planning conditions as established in government planning guidance, namely that conditions must be relevant to the development to be permitted and reasonable in all other respects. Given the Highway Authority has confirmed the improvements to the passing places are required only to mitigate the impact from additional traffic travelling to and from the new development once operational, a requirement for their delivery before a spade is even put in the ground on the site cannot be considered to provide relevant or reasonable mitigation. The Section 278 agreement will instead ensure that improvements to the passing places are delivered prior to the new development being occupied, and therefore before there is any increase in operational traffic travelling to and from the site. The local highway authority has also raised no objections to the parking arrangement proposed for the development. National policy provides that development should only be prevented or refused on highway grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety, or if the residual cumulative impacts of a road network would be severe. In this instance, the Highway Authority is satisfied the development represents a nil detriment scheme, and there is therefore no technical basis to refuse the application on highways grounds. In conclusion, with all other technical matters having been addressed in the application, the scheme is considered to represent sustainable development, the benefits of which clearly outweigh any negative impacts, and I therefore hope you can support your officer's recommendation of approval in this instance. Thank you again, Chair, for your time in allowing me the opportunity to speak in support of my client's application this evening.
Thank you very much. Right, those are the speakers. We'll now move on to the members' input. Councillor Watson, are you taking this one?
I am indeed, Chairman.
You're taking this on behalf of the ward member?
Indeed, yes. The ward member is unable to be here tonight, so I said
Okay.
I would, as the only other Raunds,
Far away.
the only other Raunds councillor, I would take it. Okay, right, let's have a look at this. I mean, we deferred it for a number of reasons before. One of those was this business about the road. Now, I'm rather confused on this one. We've heard from the officer when she spoke earlier on that the local highway authority said it's an adopted road. Yet, okay, I look at paragraph 2.1, where it says there's officers have been shown evidence from the local highway authority to demonstrate that Brooks Road is adopted. An unusual way of putting it, rather than just say it is adopted. If we go to paragraph 8.7, I think virtually the last paragraph in the entire report before we come to the conditions, we seem to have a contradiction. The local highways authority has no intention to adopt at the present time. Now, you know, to me that sort of really sort of shows that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, or somebody's juggling balls in the air and has dropped one or two. I can have no confidence, I'm sorry to say, in the assurance that we received that it is adopted. I do feel that last paragraph, 8.7, is a clear statement, whereas the first one, 2.1, the wording is unusual.
Well, let's just stop there, Peter, and let's just clarify that point. Amy, tell us what you think.
Thank you, Chair. I think the point that where it says the Highway Authority were unlikely to adopt the road was prior to the confusion over whether the road is adopted or not. It is adopted. That's that's for sure. I've seen the definitive mapping that the local highway authority holds. So I am confident 100% that road is adopted.
Okay, I thank you for that, Amy. I've seen nothing, and I may have missed it because the paperwork for this, and this is not your fault at all, has been rather delayed in getting to us. I only got my papers yesterday, and the update sheet, as I think somebody said, only came through in its final version about 5 o'clock today. Well, so I don't know, was there anything on that update sheet which is a clear statement from the local highway authority that it is an adopted road? I've seen nothing in writing.
If I can just, I can actually show you the plan now if you'd like me to. So this is Brooks Road. You'll see that
we can't see that, Amy.
I can't see anything at the moment, Amy, I'm afraid.
Let me try again. Can you see that now?
There we go, Amy, we've got it now.
Yes, yes, I can, thank you.
So this is the adopted extent of the highway in green. So you'll be able to see that Blocks Barn complex is just there, and all of that green. And that does, there are 3 different plans, but that green area, the adopted highway, does extend the whole length of Brooks Road.
Does the green mean it's adopted because it's green?
All of the green is adopted highway.
Can we just go back to the very start of Brooks Road at the Rawns end, please, Amy?
Yeah, let me just get that plan for you. Bear with me. Okay, so that you should be able to see the residential area down at the bottom.
I can see that.
Yeah, and I'll just scroll up.
Okay. Yeah. It's still okay. I can accept what you say, and I'm sure you're more than likely right. It just does concern me that we have contradictory statements on the actual report. Now, one of the speakers mentioned that it was a gated road. Now, I'm not aware of what that, well, I know what it means, obviously, but what implication does that have for traffic? The only gated roads I've ever come across, the landowner has the ability to shut the gate. So what does it mean in this instance, please?
Amy, there's no gate on that road, is there?
There isn't. I've spoken to highways on that specific point today. They are not aware that it has ever had a gate across it, but they would point out that a gated road is more to do with keeping cattle in than traffic and people out of an area. There may be signs up there, but there certainly isn't a gate, and it is not a gated road in, by definition.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay, thank you. One of the speakers also mentioned flooding, something certain areas of Rawns seem to be very prone to at the moment. Had a few floods. Now it mentions there is a culvert on one side of the road. Can I just check that the culvert is on the opposite side of the road to where the proposed passing places rather are?
Yes, I do believe it is.
Thank you. My other concern about the passing places is that they become parking places. Visitors to properties, and perhaps even residents, I don't know, on Brooks Road, could they legitimately go into those passing spaces, I'll get the right word in a minute, and park there if they're going to visit somebody? Is there anything that sort of criminalizes, if that's the right word, such an action?
Not to my knowledge. I'm not a highway expert or a policeman. But I, you know, perhaps that, you know, somebody could park there. I'm not sure.
I appreciate that, Amy, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I just know what happens in many places where there's supposed to be little passing places like this. They get used for parking because, well,
I've seen them before on other sites, and there is a sign up saying passing place only.
There is.
If we have a sign like that, you'd be happier, wouldn't you?
I would. Yeah. I noticed Patricia's got a hand up, so I'm quite happy to give way.
Patricia?
You need to unmute, Patricia.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, indeed.
3 times.
I can hear quite a bit. Not quite. Sorry, did you have something to say, Patricia?
She's muted again.
Just to let members know, Patricia's in the meeting through dialing in, but she's on the video, so that might be why she's just unmuting her actual phone to connect to the meeting.
Okay. Right, thank you.
Is that any better, Chair?
Oh, the wonders of technology.
Lawyer.
I think.
Can you unmute, Patricia? Or try?
If you're doing it on your mobile, it's *6, is it, Charlie?
Yes, it is.
*6, yeah.
There you go, Patricia. Can you speak to us now? No, it's gone. Try *6 again, Patricia.
We can't hear you, Patricia.
No.
Okay, shall we move on, Chairman?
Yeah, move on. Next question.
Okay, right. Now, I think if I remember, you said that the passing places were on the opposite side to the culvert. But we did talk about, one of the speakers talked about flooding down there. I notice in I think it's 4.3 in the report, there was concern about the impact on the culvert. Have we had anything from the Bedford Drainage Board, whatever they're called?
It's internal.
Given their opinion. Sorry, say that again, Andy.
It's an internal drainage board, it's called, and it is a precepting authority.
Thank you very much.
Amy, have you got an answer for that question on flooding?
Yeah, we haven't had a response from the Bedford Drainage Board, but we have had responses from the lead local flood authority and the Environment Agency, and both are satisfied with the proposal, subject to some quite detailed conditions. They would have obviously been aware of the site and the potential for flooding around it.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, okay. Now, one of my questions was going to be the route of the construction traffic, but I believe that has been was confirmed that the construction traffic would come from the Raunds end and not from the Denford end. Now, again, the passing places are not going to be in place, if this is indeed granted, until the first occupation of the site. So we're going to have this and it is a narrow road. I don't go up it that often, but I have been on a reasonable number of occasions. It is narrow. I think that the local highway authority at one point expressed concern about the extra traffic on what they deem to be a substandard road, substandard in terms of width and condition. So prior to the first occupation, these passing places won't be there, but we will have the construction traffic going up. That gives me, serious cause for concern from a road safety, pedestrian safety, etc. point of view.
Peter, can I stop you there? We're coming up for 8:30, which is our 2-hour cut-off. Would members like to continue longer? We have 2 applications still.
Chair, can I propose that we continue until the completion of this item, but then reconsider at the end of this item whether we could take the further ones?
I agree. I think we should go into another one. It's a long one to do the next one too.
Yep. Okay. So what we'll do then, can I have someone move that we'll continue with the adjudication of this application and then we'll reconsider? I can see 2 hands up. Anyone against that? No. Okay. So that's carried. Right, Peter, quickly as you can.
Okay. Thank you very much again. I think I've covered most of the points there that are of concern to me. Obviously, colleagues will have other points, I'm sure.
Okay, then we'll go to your colleagues. Dudley, did you have your hand up?
Yes, please. Right, there are a number of things about this that are unsatisfactory because although the Highways Authority may have done a desktop survey, they haven't driven down it like I did last week and this week. The road is flooded. It's nonsense to say on 7.51 it doesn't flood. It is flooded. And the residents say it is flooded and they should know best. So the fact of the matter is the road does flood. And if you drive down the road, although it is maintained, it's maintained to the sort of standard that the old road across the north of Scotland is maintained, that has a few cars going on it now and then, because the edges of the road, because tractors have been down there, are completely full of holes. It's all uneven either side of the road. Now what's going to happen with, and I can't believe for one reason we do these passing places after the construction traffic have used it and wrecked it, but if that is the case, the construction traffic will just make the holes absolutely bigger because they are the width of a bigger vehicle. So my car's quite big and I'm in both holes. So a tractor or truck bringing construction materials is certainly going to go down there and make an absolute mess of the road. And it's nonsense to say they'll come in from Raunds End, because from Raunds End, the car parks, the way the cars are parked would mean they'd have to go onto the grass verge to get past. And after all, people have the right to park outside their houses that they've owned for a long time. Why shouldn't they? So actually, it is very likely, I think, some of the traffic will come in from the other end. And it's only an advisory. It isn't a you will not come through from the other end. So they're coming whichever end suits them, really, because we know that from in Raunds where that happens. So they're not, it's against the law there. They still go down London Road. We're supposed to be concerned in other applications. We hear all about it. I can remember some houses just outside a village about modal shift. There's got to be a footpath of them. That we can't possibly have all these people walking on the road and so on. But in fact, it is a country lane. It's a country lane where, particularly if they start work a bit later in the year, people go for a walk. And they walk down there with the dogs and the horses are down the road. It is not a suitable road for big lorries to go down or for 130 odd vehicle movements, because if you have 67 car parking places, those cars are not going to live there. They're all going to go in and they're all going to go out. That's 130 or 134 to be precise, of vehicle movements. So it is totally unsuitable, this place, for having any more development down there. It's in the open countryside. Why on earth do we want to encourage building like that in the open countryside when there are industrial sites where there's vacant it's just I can't believe it. So the first, that's the thing so far. Then the actual site itself has got all this parking on open land. Well, that of course, what that does, it means more flooding. Because we all know, if you come into Raunds and enjoy the floods last week, that the more houses they built, the roads go straight down into the road. The roads go straight down onto the road, and the water goes straight down onto the road. So while there's a ditch down either side of the road, which there is at the moment, that reduces the amount of water coming off the fields and so on. Once you put another road, a biggish road, because if you're going to have 130 vehicle movements, it's not going to be 6 foot wide, is it? If you put a biggish road onto this narrow road, it's going to encourage even more flooding than there is already. The whole thing is totally unsuitable. It was turned down before, it was turned down several times. It is an unsuitable, unplaced to this development and unnecessary. There are lots of other industrial sites that people want to have industrial buildings. They don't need to do it in a village outside a village location in the rural countryside. So I can't believe that we will pass this. And to say all these things about the road being acceptable, it isn't acceptable. Drive down it. You could see it's not acceptable. To say the road doesn't flood, drive down it last week, it was flooded. It's just nonsense. You know, they're making it up. What they do is it's a laptop survey or desktop survey of the road. It shows it's adopted, but it's an unsuitable adopted for heavy traffic, just as the road across the north of Scotland or in Wales, some of them are unsuitable for heavy traffic. You don't drive great big heavy lorries down them because that's what they're asking to do. And I think we should totally reject this application as being unsuitable, open countryside and wrong access and a danger to the public. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just pick up on something that Councillor Hughes said there and just ask for some clarification? So Councillor Hughes mentions that in 7.51 of the report, the local lead local flood authority is content that the proposed development doesn't flood. And I can accept that maybe the position of the proposed development doesn't flood. But if we're looking at the roads that everybody keeps saying are currently underwater, if I look at the, I think I'm looking at this on the portal at the moment, and it is the Environment Agency's flood mapping, one of the documents that we've been given. It shows, it correctly does show that the development is not on a flood plain. But as you pull out of the development and turn right, the way that officers are saying that the HGV and the traffic has got to go, it goes down the road, and the flood risk that we've been given on the planning portal shows that floods. It doesn't just show that it floods. In fact, according to the Environment Agency here, it's in the darkest blue colour, which means it's a high risk flood zone 3, in fact, it's saying on this map. So if traffic comes out of this site and has to turn right, and Amy, I know I asked this at the last the meeting, if we are saying that traffic is coming out of this site and has to turn right, but we accept, well, we either accept locals' knowledge that it floods often, or we accept that it's still flooded today, or we accept the Environmental Agency's mapping that shows that it's a high risk flood zone 3. We can therefore presume that traffic that comes out of this site is going to have to go left towards Denford, not right towards Rawn. So can I just see the map? And Amy, I did mention that I thought officers would want to see this. Can I just see the map that shows the passing places as we turn left and go towards Denford, if that's the way that we presume traffic's going to have to go? Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Amy, do you have that map?
All of the passing places are in the part of the road between the application site and Rawn's. I can show you the map.
Okay. Sorry, Chairman, can I just come back? It would. Thank you, Amy, and it will be really useful for members, I'm sure, to see the passing places. But I suppose that's one of my concerns that I was hoping today we would see what the solution is. So we have to accept that the Environment Agency are right in the way that they've mapped the floodplains. So we have to accept, even if we didn't want to accept local knowledge or the objector tonight, even if we didn't want to accept that they say it floods, we have to accept the Environment Agency's statement that it is a high risk flood zone 3. Turning right. So surely the passing places have to be to the left, because otherwise we've got 2 miles of single track road with no pavement that pedestrians, children, cyclists, horse riders go down. Surely there has to be a passing places that way as well.
Amy, we haven't got them in the application, have we? Passing
No,
places.
I can show it. I can show it now. But just before I do, I think it's important to point out that highways are obviously aware of that situation. I can add that the officer who commented on it is a local who is well aware of the road and cycles on it quite often. So I think the knowledge is there. Let me just share with you that plan. Bear with me one moment.
So, Councillor Wilkes, the application is what we have in front of us to adjudicate on the way it stands.
Okay, so okay. I mean, Chairman, you're right. I mean, Amy, of course is right. We can only go on the information in front of us. So I can only go on the Environmental Agency's flood zone mapping, which says that it is a high risk flood. So it's no surprise it's underwater. I just wonder and would ask, is it not sensible, therefore, to consider that traffic may have to turn left, in which case it needs passing places, I suppose.
Amy, is that a map of passing places on the road?
It is indeed, yeah.
Well, they aren't passing places.
So we've got informal passing places, but the proposal is to upgrade 4 of those places to, as I said, they would be 2 metres wide with 2 metre tapers either end, so that a car could pull clear of the highway whilst another car passes.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just ask Amy, sorry to interrupt, could I just ask, the ones you're showing on the screen, are they all at the Raunds end of the application?
They are indeed. Can you see my cursor on the screen?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, so this is the application site here.
Right, thank you.
Raunds obviously at this end.
Can I ask if the passing places are on private land or public land? Because most of them are gateways along there. And if they're on private land, the people don't like it, they'll put a tractor in the way. If it's a private land, if I own the gateway, I can park my tractor there if I don't want lorries to go up and down the road. And so if they're on private land, have they got permission to actually upgrade them? Because they may not want them upgraded because they don't want people using them. And secondly, if they're not on public land, how are you going to stop people just parking in them? Because they're perfectly entitled to park on private land.
I would have thought if this is an adopted road, and I'd appreciate a legal opinion, then the land either side of the road, the curb, is all owned by the highways.
Driveways into people's houses that are parking.
Could I just come in there? If you look at the plan that's being shown, passing places 3, 4, 5 and 6 are the ones that will be upgraded. So that you can see where my cursor is. I think that's number 3 there. Let me just zoom in for you. So if I just show you along the road, so you've got passing place 3 here, 4 there, 5 and 6. And then if I just show you each of those places, so there's number 3 there, and the green line denotes the adopted highway. So you can see that that's well within the highway land. Same with passing place 4.
So it's true the highways own the land either side, and therefore they can't be privately owned.
Yeah,
and they're probably not in the gateways.
But there aren't 9 passing places, like it says here. There's not.
No, they're informal at the moment, and then some of them are sort of entrances to sites. But the ones to be upgraded are all within highways land.
Thank you, Amy. Right, anyone else got anything to say?
Chairman, Councillor Jill Mercer here.
Yes, Jill. Could
I just ask, on the update sheet, we had an item that said routing agreement. Members have suggested routing agreement to ensure vehicles had to turn right, but they've said that we shouldn't do that. But that doesn't seem to match on page 89, 4.4 construction management plan, where we're saying the routing agreement to discourage HGVs from travelling to and from the site via Denford Ash. They can't both be right, surely. I mean, it just seems a bit of an anomaly that we should be saying for construction traffic they can't use Denford Ash, but all the other traffic we can't.
Amy, who's right?
It may just be that we can't enforce it, but.
Amy?
I think members requested that a routing agreement was added to that condition, and I've since sought further advice from Highways, who have advised that would not be of any real benefit to the scheme because of the difficulties in enforcing that.
So is that for the construction management plan as well as normal use?
It was secured as part of the construction management plan, which would be for mainly for HGV use.
So it wouldn't be in that construction management plan, but it also wouldn't be on normal use. So say it's flooded towards Raunds, as I can imagine at the moment we've had a lot of flooding, it will be, and the traffic can't go, it would have to go through Denford Ash.
I think at either stage of the process, through whether that be the construction or the later use, again, it would be difficult to be able to enforce or monitor a routing agreement on this site, because don't forget you've got two separate uses as well. You know, you've got the existing offices as well as the proposed offices, so we'd have to distinguish whether, you know, whether those cars were coming from the new offices or the old ones, and that would be almost impossible, I think.
Thank you, Amy. Councillor Wilkes, you've got a question. Then we'll go to Andy and then Dudley.
Thanks, Chairman. It was a follow-on from my last one. I'm just hoping for some clarification of the reasoning. So at the moment, that site obviously has a fair amount, because it's developed, that site has a fair amount of traffic going to, cars going to and from it, and I think everybody accepts that. I see them when I travel on that road, and actually any upgrading or formalising of passing places would be really welcome, because at the moment there's nowhere for pedestrians or children to go to on the side of that road. And if we were just talking about a development that was going to lead to an increase in car traffic, I suppose I could think, well, that looks to me like it's an improvement. But of course we're not. We're talking here about a B8, a warehouse, HGVs. So we're going to want the passing places, because clearly there could be HGVs going in two directions, and nobody wants that to happen when there's children on the road with no pavement and no safe place for them. So we're formalising the passing places. It sounds like some of them, you know, aren't necessarily in the right location, but we're formalising. But Amy, you're saying that we're formalising 4 parking places, which I still believe are in the wrong direction, but put that to one side, that are 2 metres wide. How does that work? So when a 2.5 metre wide HGVs come in one direction and a 2.5 metre HGVs going in the other direction, how do they pass with a 2 metre wide passing place? Suitable for cars, but surely not suitable for HGVs, is it?
Amy?
Yeah, I think, you know, it would be more difficult to pass, because obviously they're wider vehicles, but I think, you know, you come across that position as it stands at the moment. So I think the number of HGVs or larger vehicles attracted to the site would be pretty low, so that scenario wouldn't present itself too often. I think also it's important to note that the storage would be associated with one of the office units, so it's not as if it's a separate entity with its own traffic to and from the site.
Okay. Andy.
Thank you, Chair. It seems to me that there are certainly adverse highways issues with this site. Before we go much further, it would be helpful if the officers could tell me if there are accepted planning issues concerning highways that could be used for a refusal of a planning application. That's the first thing. And secondly, whether or not there are any conditions that commonly used conditions that could be used to ameliorate the issues that are being seen here. So if the highways issues are considered sufficiently detrimental that one wouldn't like this to go ahead, are there any planning reasons that could be deployed to achieve that? I'm not sure there are, but I'm looking forward to hearing from an expert. And secondly, are there any conditions that could be imposed that would make those issues acceptable?
Amy?
Yeah, I think if there were any reasons to refuse and they were significant enough, then I think the recommendation would be very different to the one that you've got in front of you today. And bearing in mind my professional opinion and that of my colleagues, you know, this report has gone through several of my more experienced colleagues, and I think we've all come to that same professional opinion, that any sort of detrimental impact would not be significant, and we should be approving this application. On the conditions, I think the conditions that have been suggested are the most appropriate conditions. I don't know if Trish has got anything that she wants to add to that. If she
can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, who's that?
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, I've redialed in. I apologise for that. But listening to the debate, which I've not missed, even though I've had to redial in, it seems that members are tending towards a reason perhaps to refuse on highway grounds. We've had expert highways consultee responses who've assessed the impact of this development in terms of traffic and use of the road. There's no objection. Any harm that was recognised owing to the size of the vehicles related to this application have been satisfactorily addressed through the mitigation measures of the passing places. So I just want to help members a little bit going forward that we are required to determine in accordance with the plan. That's the law, unless material considerations indicate otherwise. When we impose conditions, we have to apply the legal test, which is that they're necessary, relevant to planning, relevant to the development to be permitted, enforceable, precise, and reasonable in all other respects. And when it comes to a reason for refusal, it has to be a planning reason, and it has to be substantiated by evidence. And I haven't heard anything which overturns the evidence in the report. So it was wise for me to say now to members, if you're considering that we're at risk of an award of costs for behaving unreasonably with respect to the substance of this matter, because we need to have evidence to go to an appeal. We're also risking it going to an appeal for non-determination if it doesn't reach a decision. Failure to produce evidence to substantiate a reason for refusal is grounds for costs, and the cost could be considerable in the event that we then defend an appeal without any evidence. So it's my duty really to bring that to members' attention before you go further with the decision.
Thank you, Patricia. Can you stay on the line, Patricia, because I think Lee's got a question for you.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry for coming back. It's just that now that the legal officer can speak, I can ask the question. I'm just looking for clarification of how we match point 7.51 of the report, where it says that the lead local flood authority, I know I mentioned it before, but I'm just looking for legal advice. The lead local flood authority has not raised any concerns regarding flooding on Brooks Road. How does that map into, forget the fact that it's underwater at the moment and that neighbours saying it's flooding, how does that map with the Environment Agency's flood mapping that shows that it's a blue high risk level 3 flood zone? So how can the Environment Agency be saying it's a high risk tier 3, level 3 flood zone, and the local lead flood authority is saying they don't believe it floods?
Well, I think the two issues are perhaps not connected to the application. So roads do go through areas which are in different levels of flooding. Members, when they're looking at the application, must look at it in the terms of the application, and they are entitled to have confidence in and to rely on the expert evidence that's produced in their consultation responses. Added to which, the Highway Authority are the authority who are responsible for drainage and keeping free flow and passage for all users of a highway, not the Planning Authority. And if the Highway Authority are accepting that the level of use proposed in this application and the conditions of the road with the mitigation are acceptable, then members need to consider, to go against that advice, what evidence are you going to use if in the event that the matter's appealed?
Okay.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
I think we've got to remember that I think flood level 3 is not a big risk. It is a risk, but it's a smaller risk than the others. And they make a judgment, I guess, that you don't get flooded very often in an area 3. Okay, it's flooded now because we've had a lot of rain. But if it were grade 2 or grade 1, then you get flooded often and regularly and deeply, but that isn't this site. So, but go what the legal officer has said, that effectively we've got to have evidence of that, which we don't seem to have so far.
Chairman, I do apologise profusely for interrupting you, but that's the wrong way round. Level 3 is the highest level of risk. Level 1's the least. So the Environment Agency are saying it's level 3. They are saying that is the highest level of risk. So it floods often. It's a high risk of flooding.
Thank you for updating me.
My apologies.
Dudley, you've got your hand up.
Yeah,
I hope it's something new.
On section 5.5. We have 2 refusals for building a few houses on this road, on the grounds that the increase in vehicle use of Brook Road will be a detriment to the safety of users of the highway, including motorcyclists and pedestrians, and so on the width of the road. You know, so we've got 2 occasions when applications are being turned down because the road's too small. And here we are, they're not even going to build these parking places or passing places before they build the lorry, before they do the development. So the lorry is going to be coming down there without any passing places. And yet we were able in the past, twice, on 5.5 and on 5.6, to turn applications down for relatively small developments, erection of 2 houses and 5 developments, because the road was increased. Now, it's not just the access to this site, but it says the increase in use of Bricks Road which is the detriment of safety of use of the highway, including motorcycles and pedestrians. But if we could do it then, and it gives the policy numbers, all the rest of it, why they were refused?
Okay, Amy, you want to say something?
Yes, please. I think it's important to point out that those applications were refused contrary to officer recommendation, and they are still going through the appeal process, so we haven't had a decision on those applications yet.
Well,
okay.
Might also
refusing the same thing. How can
I don't see any more hands up.
These spaces?
Can you stop just chatting away, please, and go through the chair? If anyone's got anything to say, put their hand up. Patricia.
Chairman, I was about to respond to what.
Listen, Dudley. Wait.
May I?
No, Patricia.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to point out that in those reasons for refusal is a very serious question of whether or not there's adequate access, and I also would advise members to try and concentrate on this application, because those summaries don't give us any background into those applications, and as the officers just said, they are at appeal.
Okay, thank you. Understand that. Right. I think, Dudley, if you're quick and not going to say the same thing again
as
and again.
As a minimum, supposing we were wrongly, I think, to approve this application, we should insist they do the parking places before they start doing the building, because otherwise how are the lorries going to get in there? You know, it's daft to do the parking places after the big lorries have been down there shifting earth and all the rest of it and bringing building materials.
Amy, isn't that something you
attack.
asked them from our original refusal?
Pardon?
I did indeed. I don't know whether Patricia wants to make a comment on that before I do.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, well, hang on, Amy.
Yeah.
Let's have Tricia.
So I think the update does say that the condition was revisited by the highway consultant for highways. And when it comes to conditions, I'll repeat that the legal test for all conditions is that they must be necessary. I've lost my. They must be necessary, relevant to planning, relevant to the development to be permitted, enforceable, precise, and reasonable in all other respects. The highway consultant has come back and said that the impact of that development will not take effect until the development is ready for occupation, at which time that justifies, that's the reasonableness, and the necessary part as well. So for this development, the traffic that requires the mitigation, i.e. the passing places to be in place, doesn't occur until occupation. And so it's we're quite capable as a planning authority of restricting the occupation until those places are in place, and at the time that the impact would be triggered. I don't think we've got grounds to require it before commencement. Before commencement, the condition requires that the applicant enters into a Section 278 agreement with the Highway Authority to agree the design and the construction of the passing places.
Yeah.
And that will have a start date, but the planning permission would control that no occupation of the new development would take place until those passing places are in place. So I think that on examination of that, we wouldn't be able to satisfy all 6 tests, if any at all, by imposing a different trigger point in that condition. Thank you, Chair.
We seem to have lost the chairman temporarily.
We've lost the chair.
Your hand.
Thank you. I think just to add to Tricia's comments, I think if the applicant were to challenge that condition, then we would be in a very, very awkward position, you know, in sort of substantiating the need for that trigger point, if it is prior to commencement. Thank you.
Councillor Stern, are you with us? It doesn't look like it. He'll probably dial back in again. I can't see anyone else. Sorry?
Take over.
Yeah, I can't see anyone else's hand up. So can I move back to Peter to make a recommendation, please?
Okay, thank you very much, Vice Chair. I've listened very carefully to Patricia's comments, and I have to take, I think we all have to take them on board very, very carefully. I think, and the sound at my end broke up a little bit, so Amy, can I just clarify with you, it would not be reasonable to ask for the passing places to be in prior to the start of construction, so that lorries going back and forth can pass one another, because that was something I must admit I would have liked to have seen. So Amy?
Yeah, that's correct. That's the opinion of officers and the local highway authority.
That was mentioned in the update sheet, Councillor Watson.
Yes, I know it was, and you still try for these things, don't you? Come on, Jill. Okay, well, I think you can gather I'm not desperately happy with this situation on such a road as Brooks Road is, but I have to take into account and take on board very strongly the legal officer's comment, and at the moment I can't see that we've got any direct evidence. I know, Dudley, you don't like it, I don't like it either, but I think we're at the state where we have got no hard evidence to go against the officer recommendation. So yeah, I wish we had. Leah, you're going to add something to save me?
Are you coming back or seconding?
Chairman, can I ask if this is sensible? If Councillor Wathen is minded to recommend approval, is it sensible then, on what we've heard this evening, we all, Environment Agency and everybody, accept that as you pull out of this development to turn right, you're going to hit a flooded road more if the weather's bad. So can we condition? Is it sensible to condition that firstly the passing places are 2.5 metres wide, so at least they work for HGVs otherwise, and can we condition that that we have to investigate, or there has to be plans for passing places to the left, so at least whichever way out of that development HGVs have to go, the public and children and cyclists are protected. Is that something that can be conditioned?
Amy, can you come back on that, please?
I think we need to look at the development we've got in front of us and determine that. The passing places being 2.5 metres wide, I don't think is an option because of the space that is available at the side of the road. So yeah, I don't think so.
I wonder, Amy,
sorry,
would it be possible to put that as an informative?
You took the words out of my mouth, Peter. Yes.
Sorry, Jill, sorry.
Would it be possible to put as an informative that we would really like to see some passing places to the left as you come out, but we obviously can't put that in a condition, but we would think that, should it prove necessary in the future, that we would be happy to see that. That would be
perfectly reasonable, Councillor, and perfectly acceptable.
Okay.
And to take Councillor Wilkes's point about 2.5 metres, again, purely as an informative, where possible.
Where possible.
So, Councillor Wathen, are you? Councillor Mercer.
I've got a completely different question. All roads have a curvature. They curve down, hopefully to shed water to the sides. When you have passing places, they curve further. Do we have any information at all about what drainage there will be in the passing places, or will they just effectively be large lakes?
If I may, Chair, through you.
Yes, certainly.
It's for the Highway Authority to determine and agree what works are suitable and acceptable on their roads, and quite clearly that would take into account what their maintenance responsibility is as a statutory duty, and they will determine what's necessary in order to take into account what the cost will be to them. So whatever's necessary will go into that agreement. It's not for this committee to dictate to the Highway Authority what goes into the agreement for the construction of the passing places. That is completely a matter for the Highway Authority and a Section 278 agreement. But a very good point.
Sorry, could I suggest, is it possible to put an informative to say that when the passing places are being constructed, that they have they're minded to the flooding that occurs on this road, and that they take that into account?
If that's
I think that would be very reasonable.
Fine too.
Would that be okay, Patricia?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a
sorry.
very useful.
Does the condition mention the 278 agreement?
Yeah,
sorry,
is it on the update sheet?
Could I just come in here.
Can
There is a condition.
Can you clarify, please?
Yeah, there is a condition to state that the applicant would need to enter into a T78 agreement with the local highway authority. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right, back to Peter.
Thank you.
You were sort of got a few
Okay,
questions.
thank you very much, Vice
You're
Chair.
proposing.
Right.
Do we have a seconder?
Well, hang on a minute.
Oh, sorry.
I haven't actually said the words yet.
I thought you'd finished. You said you were
No,
sort
I
of
hadn't actually- I hadn't said
moving that
magic
way.
words.
Moving that way.
Thank you, Jill.
Carry on.
Yeah, okay. With a heavy heart, I must admit. Okay, I propose that we accept the officer recommendation with the conditions on all that are contained in the update sheet and the informatives that we've just discussed.
Okay.
Thank
Do
you.
I have a seconder?
Councillor Mercer, before we have a seconder, can I just clarify? I can see that Councillor Stern is back in the room, as it were.
Oh, is he?
If you can hear me, Councillor Stern, can you just confirm, did you miss any or all of the chunk of the debate? I know that you've been gone for a few minutes. Can you hear us? No? Okay, I just wanted to check. Thank you.
Proceed with the Vice Chair.
Yeah. Well, when we get to the end of this, then we'll have to investigate if Councillor Stern is available. Right, so I have a proposer and a seconder. Could you all unmute, please? And if you are in agreement with that to grant this application, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Against.
Yes, have to be against.
Two against. Okay. Do we have any abstentions? No abstentions. That is then carried. Okay. Thank you very much for that, members. And we are now at 9:10. In view of the Councillor Stern, you're back. We can't hear you though.
Let's go.
You're on mute, I think.
Okay, I think that was a problem with the mics.
Ah,
Can you
right.
hear me now?
We can now. So, Councillor
Yes,
Stern,
good.
in case you hadn't
Fine.
heard,
So we've got that.
finish
That
that
is
way.
proposed, accepted, and that's gone through. So we got through that. Sorry it's taken so long, but we've had to do that properly, and I think you've made the right decision. So that's the last application for tonight, and there's no more items on the agenda.
No, Councillor Stern,
there
there are two
are.
more items on the agenda.
Say again.
There are
There's
two more items on the agenda.
I do apologise.
There's
Chairman,
one in Rawns and the Augean one.
I'm going to propose that we defer those. We're
Yes,
already
yes. Sorry, I was packing up because I'd already decided that we've probably had enough for tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
So
42
shall we
minutes
defer
past
the rest of the two other final decisions until another meeting?
I propose.
Aye.
Seconded.
Yeah.
Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
against say no. And any abstentions? Then that's carried. So we now close the meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
That's all right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Chair.
Chairman.
Good night, all.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Bye.
Aye.